Well, folks, thanks for tuning in today, joining the growing number of people who are tuning into Stockwell Day-to-Day News every day. Listeners and watchers in Canada and the U.S. and in some other places around the world as we get comments. So keep those comments coming in. You are going to hear things today that you're not going to hear in mainstream media, and you're going to hear some behind-the-scenes stuff on things that you are hearing in mainstream media. Everything today from defense and space spending and military spending. You're going to hear about the stock market, what things are going to be doing, and some disturbing and also encouraging stuff relative to kids on screens and even millennials on screens all day long. Let's take a quick look here. The budget, as we predicted, those of you who are regular watchers and listeners, you know I was predicting over a year ago that the government was not going to fall over the budget, and of course it didn't. And of course, criticism, a lot of concern, even now from international monetary funds about the rate and the height and the depth of Canada's debt and deficit. And mainstream media really doesn't like to focus on that. We dealt with that yesterday. We're going to continue to look at it. One interesting area among many with the spending that's been announced in the budget, a tenfold increase in the monies going into space research, space-based defense systems, missile systems, $528 million increase in the budget, and most of that being directed towards work with the European space industry, the European defense industry, as Prime Minister Carney and the Liberals take us on what I think is a foolhardy path away from closer alignment with the U.S. on defense and more to Europe. To me, it's always good, of course, to have business open for around the world in terms of Canadians being able to deal with all kinds of possible investors. But to be so vocally and so demonstrably with money, hardcore money, Canadian taxpayer money, drawing closer to the EU, just from the point of view of distance and location, but mainly from the point of view of who is our closest ally, who are we going to be relying on most should China or Russia start to, for instance, come over the Arctic from the north. So really questionable things there that are not going to be helping our trade situation at all with the U.S. or in other situations. Also, a review is now out about Canada's wrapped up now its year of being the head of the G7, the countries in the G7, and that's Canada, the US, the UK, France, who else is in there? Germany, Japan, and the EU actually is part of it, though a non-voting member. So Canada having a tremendous opportunity for influence for an entire year within the G7. And overall, the report card is words like lacked focus. Canada lacked focus in its leadership. Canada did not produce or develop any themes for the G7. Kind of all over the map, if anything, taking a somewhat anti-American view. So not very high marks there for Canada on the G7 in a time where we could have had great potential. I guess the only diplomatic statement made on an international basis by Canada was recognizing Palestine as a state, its willingness to do that. Palestine, which is not even a state, which doesn't even have boundaries, and of course governed by Hamas, who has one goal and one goal only, and that's the evaporation of the state of Israel and killing of Jews in Israel and around the world. So a bit of a sorry report card there on Canada's involvement leading the G7. Well, interesting as we look, I don't know if you were tuned in yesterday, I took a bit of an extensive look at the milk market and how we're coming up with milk without cows. And now there's a bunch of stories on it today. I'm not saying I'm the one who ignited the interest on that, but it does show, if you are tuned into Stockwell Day-to-Day News, you might get the first stories on larger stories then that develop, or the first reporting on larger stories that develop in mainstream media. And what a difference how things can change as we look at the U.S. and its the meeting in the U.S. with the head of Saudi Arabia. You're going to be hearing that the initials MBS is what they're already calling Mohammed bin Salman, and leader of Saudi Arabia, getting a very warm welcome in the U.S. and actually kind of a warm welcome, not right there, but from Canada too, as we continue to look to developing arms sales to Saudi Arabia. And the U.S. involvement with Saudi Arabia pulling it much closer in terms of an orbit and a more positive and friendly orbit and alignment with Israel. So pretty stunning things going on if you were following any of that today and yesterday. Look for more of that. The one thing that it should be able to highlight for Canadians, it was highlighted in some of the reports today and yesterday, that we bring into Canada, this is still shocking to me and most Canadians, about over $1 billion worth of oil from Saudi Arabia. It's refined in Atlantic Canada, and we're bringing in $1 billion worth of oil, and yet refusing pipelines across the country which could export our oil to countries so desperately in need, and our natural gas. I talk about that a lot. So the anomaly there really coming up might be a time to look for some reconsideration of that and say to the provinces and to the groups that want to oppose safe pipelines and liquid natural gas, again, in doing that, we are hurting Canadians, we are hurting First Nations groups, and we are hurting the rest of the world who would benefit extremely in a positive way from our liquid and natural gas, and emissions would be lowered in the process. But our government, the federal Liberal government, many provincial governments, still trapped by the Greta Thunbergs of the world who seem to feed the media, and we have politicians running around terrified that the end of the world is coming because Greta said so. Time to grow up, time to look at how we can really be helping the world. In terms of the world, people are watching, of course, this fourth day in a row now, we've seen a drop in the Dow Jones index, and at NASDAQ, that's the main index for tech-related stocks. A lot of people are going to be watching. We keep hearing about are we in an AI bubble that's going to burst? And can that affect, and would that affect many other stocks in a downward way? A lot of concern about that. So today is a big day because NVIDIA is announcing its stock earnings and its projections for the next quarter, and they're going to do that after the market closes today. So you want to be watching about 5 p.m. Eastern time, but about 2 p.m. Pacific time for those of you on the West Coast. There's going to be you watch for a real flurry of activity one way or another. If this huge NVIDIA, this huge tech company, depending on what they say about how their earnings have been and what they're projecting for the next quarter. So tune into that. The other huge thing that seems to be all over the world, people say they don't want to focus on the U.S., but here the release of the so-called Epstein files, and Donald Trump taking a reverse position on that, saying to the Republicans and others in Congress, vote that it be released, get all the information out there. Now, people are still saying there's going to be great damaging and revealing stuff about Trump himself. Trust me, having been in politics for quite a number of years, I can tell you if they had stuff on him related to Epstein, it would have been out by now for sure. I don't think you're going to find anything there, but what they are finding is it's getting a little uncomfortable for the Democrats because a ton of stuff related to many emails back and forth with former President Bill Clinton and with some present members of the Democrat Party in Congress. Stacey Plaskett it was found just now in the release of the Epstein files. Here she was, lots of email communication back and forth with Epstein while she was actually asking questions, this is a few years ago, in Congress, and it seemed like he was even guiding her. It seemed like it. They're going to take a closer look, but that's being reported, and that's creating a little bit of heartburn and angst on the Democrat side. So looks like a lot of people being swept up and caught up in the Epstein files, and might see a little less enthusiasm and excitement over it as increasingly the names of Democrats are popping up there. Well, one Democrat that we have been wondering about, even in Canada, certainly in the U.S., is Kamala Harris. And is she going to be taking another run at the presidency after a very poor showing related to the last time? And might be a bit of an answer to that question, because yesterday she popped up in a very important so-called special election that's going on right now in Pennsylvania. There's the voting day is going to be in 2 weeks. And the two people running there, Aflin Ben, B-E-H-N is the last name, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, and the Republican is Matt Van Epps. Now, Matt Van Epps is favored to lead and won the last time, but Kamala Harris showing up to do some campaigning with the Democrat candidate. Now, she may be thinking there's nothing to lose, because if the Democrat candidate doesn't win, they can say, well, you know what, that was a Republican district anyway. But with Democrat districts, a couple of weeks ago, winning, albeit it was all in Democrat districts, but they all won very well, and some increased their votes. So there's going to be a lot of attention in 2 weeks on that vote in Pennsylvania, and we'll see if Kamala Harris shows to have had a positive effect in terms of encouraging voters. You never know. Gavin Newsom, Kamala still might be coming for you, and AOC, you better watch out. Kamala is not gone yet. Well, somebody who is going into a bit of a fade among small C conservatives over the last little while is Tucker Carlson, of course, long time a darling of the conservative podcast community. And the fact that it's still coming back on him, the fact that he featured in such an uncritical way Nick Fuentes, who is well known as not just hard right, but could be probably credibly, the way he talks about Nazis, the way he talks about Hitler, the way he is so viciously anti-Israel, and his boys called the Groypers, taking really misogynist, abhorrent stands on so many issues. And when Tucker Carlson had him on his show, he didn't really push him at all on any of these things. Just another indicator to some on the small C conservative side that Tucker is losing it a little bit. I remember watching with some surprise some time ago when he got back from his first ever visit to Moscow, and in one short visit there, because he saw beautiful things on the grocery shelves and clean streets, which is a remarkable difference than New York City, I can say, he was kind of swept up thinking, wow, maybe Putin isn't that bad a guy, and maybe Russia has a point. So Tucker Carlson, keep an eye on his, let's say, stock value if he continues in that particular direction. Well, somebody whose stock, if I could use the word, has gone up across the board is Marjorie Taylor Greene. And there's a lesson here for all politicians, especially those in Canada, because she was probably, while she was an ardent Trump supporter, probably one of the most despised people by the media on the left. Mainstream media hated her, despised her for her small C conservative positions. But now she's a darling of the left. CNN just can't get enough of her. Even in Canada, CBC talking about her, previously ignoring her, as most media does. As I've brought out before, if you are a woman who is small C conservative and you actually believe in small C principles, either fiscally or socially, you are going to be torn apart, either torn apart or completely ignored by media. But now she's the darling, and she's appearing on shows like The View. Why? Well, because she attacks Donald Trump. So very interesting lesson there for small C conservatives. If you're feeling like media is ignoring you, you want to get some good media points, you want mainstream media to love you, just start saying nasty stuff about whoever the conservative leader is, and the media are going to fall all over you. Same in Canada. I continue to see on the talk shows in Canada people who are well-known conservative commentators, and there they are not hesitating at all to bash the conservative leader federally, and also go after the conservative premier of Alberta. So I would say to those commentators, and you know who you are, yep, you will. They will love you. Mainstream media will love you until you, if you ever go back to your real conservative roots and start promoting conservative principles, you'll find out that love affair is going to be short-lived and Marjorie Taylor Greene may find that out. Also interesting watching that move along. Well, the U.S. has really upped the ante and upped the talk, and now beginning to up it in material ways in terms of what's going on in Nigeria, the ongoing slaughter, especially of the Christian community. We've talked about this, and it's getting more traction now. And Trump now hinting, just the way only he can do, that there might be some intervention by the U.S. against the Islamist extremist groups. And again, that tendency in mainstream media, they hate to use the word Islamist when it comes to Islamist groups. They use their other, the subgroup names, whoever it might be, Boko Haram or Hamas or whatever group. They never attach the word Islamist, but it is these Islamist groups. The body count, they say, from 20 to 25 among Christians who've been slaughtered is something over 20,000, something over 20,000. A genocide, a true genocide that mainstream media has tried to ignore, but it looks like it's going to be less easy for them to ignore. Trump is up in the ante. Biden had removed Nigeria from, there's a special designation in the U.S. for countries of concern, and Biden had removed that. He wasn't too upset about the Democrats weren't upset about the slaughter and attack of the Christian communities in Nigeria. President Trump changing that. Let's see where that is going to go. Well, some recent, just today and yesterday, the release on a number of fronts of IQ scores and ACT scores. The ACT scores in the U.S. are used to determine your chances of getting into universities, especially good universities. And not good news at all. IQ scores dropping significantly among young people when compared to previous years, especially significant drop in the 18 to 24-year-olds who've been now on their machines and devices for a number of years. So some pretty concerning numbers there, but a big increase among that age group in terms of their trust in TikTok for media, for news items. So real concerns there. And what's been said to be a part of that is the fact that, and you can use as a metaphor the whole selfie generation. The more you've got that you're staring into your camera and taking hundreds of pictures of yourself a day, and that's of course widespread, it's showing that as your focus on yourself increases, then your focus on others and the rest of the universe, and even your interest in what's going on around you drops. And so you start listening to what's happening even geopolitically around you, and you become more ignorant of all things. And so it's really being seen as a serious factor that, especially when you look at ACT scores, are the lowest now. Last year, they were the lowest in 30 years. This is a real concern. Probably a reason that we're seeing a rise in some interesting job opportunities. Parents are hiring screen coaches, believe it or not. Parents don't have the nerve, of course they've lost all their nerve to say anything in a disciplinary sense to their precious darling children, so they're hiring coaches much like people will hire a dog trainer to train their dog, because they don't want to be the ones in the dog's eyes saying no, stop, sit, go, don't bark, whatever. And so if you're looking for an interesting line of work, consider being a screen coach. Help parents get their kids off of screen addictions. And another economic opportunity, there's these camps now that are springing up. You used to want to send your kids to camp to help them enjoy the outdoors and learn about everything from canoeing to what kind of trees grow in the forest. And now we have Camp Reset is one of a number of new camps, is a new phenomenon. This one's in Santa Barbara, and $8,000 a week if you want to send your child there to learn how to get off of their screen dependency. Some opportunities. Parents, take a look, and there might be some jobs for you. Also with concern, a report out yesterday because people are starting to wonder about why the increase in Benadryl, which is, as you know, an allergy drug. It's an antihistamine. And the reports are very clear, a huge increase in the number of young people using Benadryl just to get some kind of a high, to get stoned, as we used to say. much, much cheaper. You can buy it over the counter. And what young people are doing is they'll pop 15 to 20 of these pills at a time. Most adults would probably think, well, that's just going to make you sleepy. Well, it does that, but when you take it in those kind of amounts, there's a mild buzz effect, a stoning effect, but it's increasingly becoming a concern. So if your kids are coming home and you're finding bottles of Benadryl in their hands, and they say it's for their allergies, there are other allergy drugs out there over the counter that don't have some of the same addictive quality as Benadryl seems to be having, so you may want to take a look on that. Folks, a lot of challenges out there, a lot of opportunities, and thanks for tuning in. We will see you tomorrow.